So let's jump directly into the topic. Brelotte, your video show how central connectivity is to your business. And it brings us to a topic that touched many of us recently, the cable crisis. Can you tell us how Orange managed the cable crisis and what measures are in place to avoid future interruptions?
Thank you, Benjamin. And good morning, everyone. I'm really very pleased to be back here in Africa Tech, the yearly tech event of the continent. Well, I just want to add the fact that this connectivity is not only important for our business, but it's important for the whole countries. Unfortunately, in March this year, we had a major crisis, cable cut in Côte d'Ivoire. And it was really unusual because we had 4 cable cuts at the same time. You know, very often we can have just 1 or 2 cable cuts. In Africa, you have almost half of the countries that have less than 1 cable landing station. And very few countries can enjoy having more than 3 cables, connectivity to 3 cables. So having 4 cable cuts at the same time was really very unusual. And it deeply affected many countries, 13 countries, African countries, and among which 7 in the OMA, Orange, Middle East, and Africa footprint. And we had, of course, with other operators to react. We have the chance to be very present in West Africa. We are in Côte d'Ivoire, in Senegal, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Mali, Burkina. And we could manage to reroute the traffic because it could no longer go through Côte d'Ivoire. We could reroute it in other countries. The Honorable Minister said it just before. There are very few problems that we can solve just giving one country. So we need to work together, and that's what we did. We rerouted the traffic using our key asset that we have in West Africa, which is Joliba, a terrestrial network, to reroute all the traffic from Côte d'Ivoire to another hub that we have in Senegal. So other countries, especially the landlocked countries, could enjoy the traffic restoration in just a couple of hours instead of waiting until this cable cut was fixed, and it was due to underwater landslide, and it took many months. And for us, this cable cut was really a turning point because it completely changed the view that we have on resiliency. Mm-hmm. So far, resiliency was just about being connected to many submarine cables. But today, resiliency will really be about submarine cables connected to terrestrial networks and being able to jump from one hub to another.
Okay, great. So, yeah, talking about infrastructure, it's crazy to see that only 4 cables can impact millions of lives. So, is there a critical need to reevaluate the resilience of connectivity infrastructure in Africa? And most importantly, its impact on people's life when there is a problem?
Yes. Well, I remember back in May, we were in the CEO forum in Kigali, and there were many panels around, okay, how can we build resilient connectivity? It's not just because we have cable cuts that all businesses should be affected. Mm-hmm. And consumer clients were just saying the same. Okay, should we just listen operators saying that it's a force majeure so that we cannot enjoy our daily use of being connected to the internet? And there is a reason for that, of course, because internet today is really very important for all businesses and consumers. COVID has tremendously accelerated adoption for digital. There is the impact on the GDP, Honorable Minister reminded. And you also have this non-profit organization, NetBlocks, saying that has developed a website to kind of evaluate what is the impact of one day of no connection in a country. And the figures are really very impressive. When you look at South Africa, it's just they assume that it's 72 million USD per day. For Cote d'Ivoire, where we had this cut, it's 25 million, so 125 for Egypt. So this only shows how important today connectivity is important for the whole economy, for all the teams. So for us, as I mentioned, we need to change the way we address resiliency. And we have, for instance, after this crisis, decided to upgrade the Joliba network that we have 5 times full between the previous situation and now. And resiliency should really be addressed around many hubs in West Africa. We have some of them, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, but we are also assessing another one in Morocco. We have others in Nigeria, Ghana, you know all of them. And it's very important to build terrestrial networks connected to this hub so that we can just address this issue of resiliency. And it will be also good for domestic traffic, because you know that as many fibers we have at the terrestrial level, as many opportunities that we have to serve B2B and B2C customers.
Okay, great. So there is resiliency, but there is also the growing demand that's coming. How does Orange plan to adapt to that growing demand and meet the needs of the people?
Yes, well, in Africa we have many specificities. Demography is increasing, very sharply. When we look at the figures of the GSMA, penetration also, more or less, we're adding 20 million internet subscribers every year. Usage is increasing. In the last GSMA report, usage per user is expected to move from 2 giga a month to 9 giga, so time for penetration, usage, population, all of this is just pushing up the demand, and it has the consequences on infrastructures that need to follow, and growth is really exponential. In our networks, we see more or less 30 to 40% increase year over year. I remember back in 2012 when we were laying the ACE cable in Senegal. At that time, the international bandwidths were about 10 gig. Today, it's more than 1 terabyte, so 100 times more in just 10 years. So it means that we need to cope for this growth. And for Orange, the answer is in 3 words: capacity, coverage, and resiliency. Capacity first, and using all the available technologies to address this. And for us, it's the wireless networks, of course, 4G, 5G. Now we have launched 5G in 3 countries, in Botswana, Jordan, Senegal, and Egypt, Tunisia will be next, and others. And we have better spectrum efficiency in 5G, so we can address more traffic. Of course, investing in 4G. Fiber, we're one of the biggest player in fiber, 1.2 million in all the countries, and eventually satellite. We have more and more players coming with relevant solutions, being on the LEO or GEO. So we believe in this technomics approach to use all the technologies where they are best suited: wireless, fiber, satellite, and I will not say more on resiliency. I mentioned it in terms of architecture of the network and covering rural areas. We are planning to add 15,000 sites in rural areas for the next 4 years. And all of this will help address the 2 challenges that are basically giving more and more capacity to existing customers because they use it growing, and including more in the digital space.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So now let's talk more about cloud and AI services. Concretely, could you give us or share with us how Orange is leveraging cloud services and AI services to create value for its customers and for its network operations?
Okay, well, 20 years back, more or less, our networks were carrying voice and SMS. And then we had these broadband networks coming in, 4G, 3G, 4G first, and after 5G. Fiber was rolled out in many areas. And not only the network was here to provide the connectivity, but also connectivity changed the way we were operating the networks. In 2015, we decided in Orange to have just one GNOC in Dakar and Abidjan to serve 10 countries. But this was enabled because we had the connectivity. So we changed from operating one network to one place gathering many networks. Okay? And then each generation will carry more traffic across the network. And we had cloud services and now AI. Look at the cloud services. There is no cloud service without connectivity. The network is enabling the cloud. But at the same time, cloud services are changing the way networks are operating. Think about this US-based operator, Dish, which has his whole core network sitting in public cloud. And it's the same for AI, and that's why we're looking at it from two angles. The first, how networks will enable AI services, okay? And it comes down to having the right bandwidth, the right latency, especially for real-time use cases, and edge computing. And AI will also bring new capabilities to the network. And I just want to name a few of them. The first being predictable network. We have many machine learning algorithms that can help anticipate the failure of equipments because they have the patterns. And then if you manage to change the equipments before you have the outage, then you reduce the downtime. The second is really about automation. And in this regard, the example is just that I want to draw. The parallel is between the network and a car. Cars can drive without any AI, and so do networks. But if you bring AI to the cars, then you can have driverless cars, you can have more intelligent cars, and it's the same for network. TMF has standardized, the towards, for instance, the standards towards automation, just like they did in API. And the level 4 is more or less no-touch network. And we're working on that, and I think that very soon we can be proud of being one of the first African operators to have this kind of zero-touch network because they operate themselves using all the AI technologies to anticipate, to correct as they grow. And you have companies, as you speak, that have it in Europe, in the US, and also in Asia. So these are the key capabilities that will come with AI. And on the customer side, you will also have many other examples. We are, as operators, are very used to all this CBM, CVM, but AI is bringing new sophisticated algorithm to, for instance, drive loyalty, generate revenue, and this will also help in customer relations. With the generative AI solutions, we're trying to adapt local languages and having generative AI LLM models working for local languages. This will really change the game in terms of interaction because customers will be able to speak in their languages, speech to text or speech to speech, interact with all the interfaces in their local languages to do the command, and it will change. Look at the mobile money services today. If you want to use them, you need to do something, go to 3x menu. But if you can do it vocally in your language, this will really change the game and include more and more people that can use it. And externally, we're communicating in 3 use cases. The first being smart CapEx. I mentioned all the challenges that we have in Africa. Africa is big, from Cape Town to Cairo. It's 10,000 kilometers, from Dakar to Djibouti, 10,000 kilometers. When you look at the US, from New York to San Francisco, it's less than 4,000 kilometers. From Houston to the frontier of Canada, less than 2,500. So Africa is 3 times bigger than the US. So we need to allocate smartly the investment traffic is growing, and you have all these smart CapEx models that allow you to combine network, populations, the demand, and allocate specifically the CapEx where it's needed, because we need to be really very smart in terms of CapEx allocation. The second is on generative AI. We have developed internally a solution called Dino2 at Orange. It's we're not developing the generative AI solutions. It's about aggregating all the available ones, ChatGPT, Gemini, Mistral, what you have, and enable our employees to use them, interact with them, and it will use the best suited generative AI model to give the answer. For instance, when preparing my speech, I used this Dino2 in some parts so that eventually the audience can know if it's working good or not. And the third is Titogenes, is just a generative AI solutions to help interact with customers. And we have all the three use cases in the Orange booth just here. Then I'll invite you after to see our teams, interact with them, and see how it works. So clearly, generative AI is having a big impact. It's now, and when you look at the figures, the market of AI in Africa, as we speak, is around 4 billion, and expected to increase 4 times, according to CTICC. And it's now, and it shows that we're also shortening the delay of adopting these technologies in our geographies compared to the Western.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. So we have 3 minutes late. 3 minutes left.
Thank you.
2 more questions very quickly. The first one is about the risk associated with AI. Do you see any risk, and do you have some idea how to mitigate them?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have all the risk that we mentioned. As any new technology, we can have some risk linked, for instance, in the algorithm to bias and data privacy, intellectual property, and the other ones, like AI will replace the jobs, etc. I think that we can address some of them. For instance, I'll just give 2 examples. The first, on environment. AI will require a lot of power in a continent where we're lacking of power. In Morocco, where I live, they have, as we speak, 43% of renewable energy. And their target is to reach 52% by 2030, and in 2027 they will already be there, because they have a huge potential, 5 giga of solar and wind, and they assume that their potential is 25 terawatt of renewable energy. And this can solve not only access to renewable energy, but also powering all these use cases. And you also have, for instance, the data privacy, and regulation can help in this regard. And it comes back to what said the minister, that we should work collectively to address this. Regulation can solve some of the issues, business can solve others, for instance, in cybersecurity, and that's how we can at least make sure that we have all the benefits of AI.
Okay, great. So last question to conclude on a positive note. What are your thoughts about the role of connectivity and telecommunication for the social development of the continent?
Well, I think that all the figures show that we have a very big impact in terms of relation between connectivity and social and economic development, and this will go further, because if we are in an exponential trend. We just need to change sometimes our mind on what is resiliency, how we should embrace all these new technologies like AI. Last week, I was in Central Africa. Central Africa, 600,000 square kilometers, just less than 6 million inhabitants. It's bigger than France and Belgium combined in terms of size. And the population is less than 6 million. And when you look at France and Belgium, it's 80 million. When you look at the GDP, it's around 4 billion USD for Central Africa, and 3.6 trillion for France and Belgium combined. So how do you address the challenges of putting the digital? And I was really impressed by how authorities put on their agenda having the robust infrastructure. They have developed fiber to Congo, fiber to Cameroon, putting data centers, having good regulation and unlocking the potential. We signed last week to have the 4G, so we will be launching 4G. It's the last country. So in the video, we said 17 countries. Now it will be 18, completing the whole footprint. Training people. They have set a center to train people on the fiber, on cybersecurity, and having the whole ecosystem in place. I think that we should be proud and very much optimistic about the future, because it's no longer the usual suspects that are here to lead, and they should lead. So South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, but it's really across the board with all countries that are putting the right ingredients to make it happen and to have very impactful, very big impact in Africa.
All right. Thank you very much, Brelotte. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I wish you a good event.
Thank you.